Some of you might be tempted to buy into Miami after their win. I am not one of those people.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thank you all so much for helping make that the case. What does Oklahoma do from here? I'll ask Jay Smith of Locked On Sooners and thoughts on the G5 amidst various comments on the matter. This episode brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So, Miami goes in Texas A&M, proves me wrong, proves many others wrong, sports books, Miami gets it done. Doesn't always matter how it looks, right? 10-3 the final score. Carson Beck goes for 104 yards passing or some such ridiculousness. I mean, Mark Fletcher running for more yards than Carson Beck had passing. What if I told you that going into the game? You would have said, holy smokes, is Miami going to have 500 yards of offense? Well, no, not exactly. But they scored more points than the other team. And last I checked, if you remove NCAA vacated wins, teams that score more than the other team have a 100% winning percentage all time. Just food for thought. So I don't buy Miami at all. I think this is a massive win. Massive win for the program. But the ramifications to me are off the field, not on the field. Because they went into College Station and beat a team from the SEC. And by the way, playoff committee's feeling pretty good about itself right now. Because, like some others, I have lobbied the entire time and had lobbied for BYU getting in over Miami. If I were to make that case to the committee, my argument wouldn't change even though Miami won this game. But that's just probably a fundamental disagreement on how to assess college football playoff teams. The committee would probably look back at me and say, Spencer, did you see that game over there? We put Miami in the playoff. And Miami went and won a road non-conference playoff game. First team ever to do that. Fact check true. Cannot argue with a single one of those points. The fact of the matter is, unfortunately for Miami fans out there, is they went on the road and beat a very flawed Texas A&M team that has some high highs, but also some really low lows. Now, the good news is that going into this game against Ohio State, I think it's more than feasible because I think Ohio State's offensive line is solid. I don't think it's anything special. I think Miami up front showed you against Texas A&M they are special. Texas A&M was one of the 12 finalists for the Joe Moore Award this year, given to the nation's top offensive line. They weren't in the top three, but they have been a good unit all year. And Texas A&M could not run the football. Texas A&M was mostly relying on Marcel Reed finding escape hatches in the pocket because he was facing pressure from all over the place. And early in the game, I thought that Marcel Reed running was going to be a huge story as the game progressed, and Miami made some great defensive adjustments. You know what I want to commend Miami for, in addition to just winning this game that they would not win a year ago? They were 10-2 last year. Did not make the college football playoff. This is a much better 10-2 Miami team. Because what Miami did in the offseason is something that I have long encouraged coaching staffs to do, and most of them do it, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes coaches wait. Sometimes coaches want to see if something can be figured out. When you've got a serious weakness and it's holding you back from achieving something, go attack it. Go attack it. Well, Mario Cristobal realized, okay, so schematically and personnel-wise on the back end, we're not very good. So why don't we go out and get a bunch of transfer DBs, and why don't we go out and get Minnesota's defensive coordinator, because that was one of the most underrated coordinator hires of the 2025 carousel cycle. Is that the way the years go? Would it be the 24 cycle? I don't know. Anyway, last offseason, it was one of the most under-the-radar moves. It is why Miami won that football game. So I commend them for that. It's a huge statement for the program. To go on the road and beat an SEC team. Boy, it's a good look for the ACC. It's not a good look for the SEC. And it's great for Miami. after going 20-4 in the regular season for the last couple of years, to have that banner flat, well, you're not literally hanging a banner, but that kind of flag-bearing moment of, hey, went on the road, beat 11-1 Texas A&M. That is no joke. That is no joke. Here's the issue for the Hurricanes. Now they go and face Ohio State. What happened the last time Ohio State took the field? Their offense was sluggish because the Indiana defense is very good. Schematically, they are very good. I think they're better than Miami. I think Miami's got better personnel in some areas, but Indiana's defense, Brian Haynes, as good as there is in all of college football. Well, the last time that late in the year, Ohio State lost a big game that most people thought they should win, they went on a little bit of a run. They had a little bit of momentum that they were able to develop, and all of a sudden you looked up and they won the national championship. So according to our friends at FanDuel, Ohio State is favored by 7.5 points last I checked against Miami. And you know what? Why don't I just double check as I record the show to make sure? Because I wouldn't be surprised if this line is moved out. I really wouldn't. Oh, look at that. It's up to 9.5. Yep, that seems about right. The problem for Miami is that offensively, they have moments where they can run the ball, and then they have moments where they don't. And they can throw it, but they're kind of Malachi Tony, or there's not a whole lot else. You can't be that one-dimensional against Ohio State. I don't think that you're going to be able to have as much success against the Ohio State defense running the ball the way they did against Texas A&M. And by the way, we're not going to sit here and pretend like Miami's offense played well and now they're going to go play a better unit. Heck, if they get to 17 points, that would be outstanding. But that means you have to keep Ohio State under 20. And with extra time to rest, I don't think that's going to happen. So, while I feel that way about the game and would lean towards, and I mean, if you're going to listen to anybody with regards to point spreads, it should obviously be me because I've had an absolutely killer season. I've had a terrible season. I would lean Ohio State in the points. I think they can beat Miami by double digits. They are a complete, well-rounded, explosive, and motivated football team. Miami, I think there will be an element, and I don't think Hurricane fans will like me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think there will be an element for Miami of an emotional letdown, because to win a game like that, 10-3, in that style that was so ugly, knock down, drag out, just slugfest your way to a win, it can take a lot out of you. I think there can be an emotional high that comes from that, where once you get to your next opponent, you don't have everything in the tank you need. Now, there's a long gap between the two games, long enough perhaps to where they'll be ready to go. But in no way do I think Miami can beat Ohio State. I think it is the least likely game. Not just because of the spread. I think it's more likely that Ole Miss, without Lane Kiffin, beats Georgia than it is Miami beats Ohio State. But overall for the program, what a massive win. I don't want to end on that negative note, because for Miami to go out there and do this, boy, it is a testament to what Mario Cristobal has built, what he is continuing to build, and why Miami should indeed feel like he's the right man for the job. Might not always feel like that when he drops a dud in the middle of the season to Louisville or SMU, who end the year unranked. But this was a reminder that it might not always look great, but the way that he assembles talent is good enough to go toe-to-toe with anybody. And I think if they can continue to recruit at the level that they have, and seems like they will, Miami will be a perennial playoff team. No qualms about that whatsoever. Even though I have reservations about Mario Cristobal, I think he just gives a certain floor for that program. I don't think they're beating Ohio State. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me why I'm wrong, hating on Miami and all that sort of stuff. That's the arrangement here that we have, right? So, anyway, what does Oklahoma do? Try to feel good, I guess. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever, like these college football playoff games. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That goes away with Game Time. Game Time gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. You want to go to these playoff games that are upcoming? Game Time's the way to go. So, I've used Game Time several times myself to go to sporting events, to go to comedy shows. The process was great. Everything that you want in a ticketing service, Game Time gets you. Great deal. You know what to expect. They're not jumping the prices at checkout once you toggle on all-in pricing. It is great. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What does Oklahoma do now? Jay Smith of Locked On Sooners is here. Jay, are you okay? Because I wouldn't be.
I'm going to be 100% honest and transparent to the audience. Rarely do sports actually affect my emotions. I have a love for it. The part that hurts me most is for the fans. I have an empathy issue. And that is usually what kicks my tail is. I just don't like seeing the people sad. It makes me feel bad. But for me, I'm good because Spencer, remember when we were talking at the beginning of the season and you told me at best 8 wins? Remember a lot of people basically would say this?
I predicted 8 wins on the money. I undersold the Sooners' capabilities.
And that to me is where I'm like, I'm not as upset. And this is why. Half the season, you didn't really even have an offense due to a bunch of just bad injuries. And you still grinded out 10 wins. That's impressive. Hell of a job coaching. Hell of a job by the staff. Now you have to build on it. You ain't got a choice. You got to build on that crap. And so for me, I'm looking at this as Oklahoma went a place that I didn't think they could get to, which was having a really good defense. And then when you go into this playoff game, which we'll talk about in a second, is the 2 phases of the game that you were really good at nails are the ones that failed you. Sucks. So you got to build on it. It's time to build on it and keep moving forward.
That was my exact thought. Maybe you're a consumer of Locked On College Football. I went live after the game and said, man, this has to hurt extra because I get annoyed when coaching staffs in any sport go away from what has worked, don't rely on their top guys in the biggest spots, change their game plan without explanation. Oklahoma didn't do that. They were making the same 4th down decisions. They were executing the same way early in the game. It was exactly how you drew it up. And then all of a sudden, yes, the John Materi interception was really bad. No question about it, whether it's his fault, the receiver's fault, both. The O-line, I think the O-line is, we're going to talk about that in a second. But I think that's what has to sting the most for Oklahoma fans is that the defense, okay, you take out the pick 6. They gave up 27 points at home when they were the more rested of the 2 teams. More time to prepare. More time to be at 100%. Alabama had to go through a knockdown, drag-out 28-7 beatdown in the SEC Championship game and came in there and went on a 34-7 run anyway. I mean, that's gotta sting.
It burns. It burns that you had everybody ready in the right spot. You start the game off 17-0. You did everything that Georgia did in this game. You did everything they did that you were supposed to do to handle it.
They even ran the ball a little.
Yeah. Like, I was going through it and looking through this. You forced 3 straight punts, basically 3 and outs on Bama. Whomst among us would have asked for a better situation? 3 and out. Bama replies, you go 9 plays, 31 yards, you punt. Cool. But you did exactly what you would like to do, which is the one thing that Oklahoma was one of the top 5, if not the top teams in the country with, is field positioning. You had Bama in hell in the field positioning side, Spencer. Yeah. And that next play, after you force another 3 and out, you go 59 yards for a touchdown. You get the ball back, you go 13 yards for a field goal. After another punt, right? You did all the stuff that you needed to do. Then you go score again on an 8-play, 63-yard. Something we did not expect out of John Mateer. He took the tape off the thumb, and guess what? He looked like the one that he looked like against Michigan. This was the Michigan John Mateer. Some decisions were questionable that passed Xavier Robinson, which I hate for X-Rob, and I hate for John because it was a lose-lose situation. Either you run it, and people say, dude, you had a wide-open running back in the back. You should have threw it to the wide-open player. Get the first down, maybe the game changes. But you throw it, he's wide open, and it hits right there off the fingers.
You got to catch the ball.
You do. Especially because it was right there in his lap. It was thrown to lead him.
It was a walking touchdown.
Felt like he slowed down. Yeah, it felt like he slowed down a little bit, and then he misguided where the ball was at.
You know what he did, Jay? He was the shooter that was too open for 3.
Yeah, that's what it was.
It wasn't a rhythm play. You don't expect to be in that spot, and then you think about it for too long, and you get a little tight. You get a little aiming, guiding,
lemon
thinking,
booty,
alligator arming. Not great. I do want to touch on this because anytime Oklahoma comes up on this show in the offseason, which will of course be many times, the number one thing that will be a recurring theme is how, once the portal opens, does Oklahoma fix the offensive line? Because, Jay, this was my objection with the Sooners coming into the year. As the season went on, not only can they not run the ball, they couldn't consistently protect John Mateer. Am I misremembering, or did they have a free rusher at him with a 3-man pass rush from Alabama at one point in the game?
They did. And
that's not okay.
Let me preface by saying this, and some people will 100% disagree with me, and that's fine. I am totally here for the disagreements. People hate half the thing I say anyway. But you know one thing about the offensive line that makes me excited about going into next season? Not only did they actually play a hell of a lot better than expected, they had 3 freshmen on the line. Your left tackle, your left guard. That's where that free rusher came from. Yep. Alabama got smart. They realized that the freshmen weren't very good at understanding the twists, stunts very quickly. So they started adjusting themselves. When they would see that Oklahoma was successful in blocking, next play they'd switch it up. And that's when you start to see some challenges on that. That's how you saw those back-to-back sacks. It was coming from that side of the field. They were literally doing a great job of twisting and everything. I was impressed with that. That was Alabama. That was Kane Womack paying attention to the fact that, they do have 3 freshmen, and we need to go after them. We need to exploit them. Center was fine for Vechuebu. His second start at center, he did good. Your right guard is a true freshman. Your left tackle is a true freshman, and your left guards are redshirt freshmen. Next season, they'll be better. They just learned of some valuable lessons about how you're supposed to play line. Because they've been playing together for like the last 4 games. Mistakes are going to be made against a veteran D-line and veteran DC that understands it. That's the SEC, baby. That's what you're going to see on the defensive side with the Big Ten, baby. You got veteran DCs. They know what the hell they're doing. Yeah. They just need to grow. They need to continue to grow. And I think next season they're going to be really good. And you bring it back 4 offensive linemen.
I see that angle of it. It feels like still having an anchor piece would be really beneficial. Because I think this Oklahoma team can be really good again in 2026. The schedule is not as brutal as it has been in the last couple of years. John Mateer probably coming back. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
He'll be back.
There's going to be a lot to be excited about in Norman, but that group up front, I just feel like they need to go out and find the one guy. Like an example that I know very well, obviously, because I cover Oregon. They went out and actually added several transfer offensive linemen. They kind of like half and half transfer in high school guys. But the guy they went out and got, who's made the biggest impact, is Emmanuel Pranon, who is, I think, 3rd-team All-American this year. Came over from USC, veteran. Oklahoma needs to find that sort of guy. I'm fine if you want to go the developmental route and say, hey, we've got these linemen who we like that have gotten experience. Okay, that's fine. I don't think in 1 year one of those guys is going to become the caliber of offensive lineman that you're going to need to go and sustain a run in the college football playoff. I think you've got to go out and try to find. I don't care if it's a tackle, a guard, a center. I don't care which position it is. Am I crazy? Am I overreacting? Am I a prisoner of the moment with that take?
I think you're a prisoner of the moment on that take, but I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're far-fetched. I do think that Oklahoma needs to go grab one more really good offensive lineman, and I don't know where. Like I don't expect them. The left tackle is solid. Fasusi's that job is his, and he's shown you good enough. I mean, hell, he was manhandling people in Michigan, right? And he sprained his ankle early in that game, so he was doing well. Your left guard, I think EPL is now there. The biggest issue with him is he has a tendency of being a hothead, and that's where you got that penalty in the game where he got from that late block. And that game's the game. But you probably could use a good right guard, maybe a right tackle. I think Foje will develop into the one you want. They're also getting beat up by this defensive line in practice, right? So they're learning about what other teams have to deal with week after week. I don't think you're far-fetched. You're trying to find one really good dude that you can come in and be the anchor. But I think Fasusi ends up being that next season as a true sophomore. I think he surprises a lot of people with continued development because Foje was solid at the right tackle.
Be surprising. He was a blue chip talent coming
out
of
high school. Right? He's 5-star. Foje was a top 10 offensive lineman. He was a borderline 5. He was a 4-star player. He's a top 10 tackle in the country. So you've got 2 tackles that were top 10 in the country as your bookends. And all you got to do is get one of them put on a little bit too much weight. Foje did. Once he scales that back, I think he's going to be a nice threat. So, but you're not wrong. I do think they need one more veteran presence to help that because having 3 sophomores can be challenging going forward. But you'll have a senior at center, Jake Michaela. If he's healthy, he should be fine. You may go get a center. But right guard is really the biggest question mark, and it's probably the spot you can go find somebody.
They need to find Indiana last year went and got Pat Coogan from Notre Dame, was one of the most underrated transfers in all of college football. Oh, by the way, Indiana was a finalist for the Joe Moore Award this year. What do you know? He was the starting center at Notre Dame who was going to be the backup because the guy he replaced got healthy for the season. So somebody like that, I don't know who that name is. What the portal's open in January 2nd. Most of the names that have been announced that are big have been quarterbacks and wide receivers at this point. There will be some offensive linemen. It's not a huge number usually in the portal, but they're out there. They're there to be had. I think that's where Oklahoma's got to look. Jay Smith, Locked On Sooners, great as always. Some thoughts on the G5. Are we just bound to go towards what feels like an inevitable outcome? First, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. NFL Sundays, man, they move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game. You're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment, it's all there. And all these college football playoff games that I'm talking about here on the show, they're all there on FanDuel. Do you want to be a part of the wild swing that happened in Norman on Friday night, it all blends together sometimes? Guess what? You can, because FanDuel is right there to give you everything you want. College football, the NFL, and more. FanDuel has got you covered. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. They've got point spreads, they've got point totals, they have got money line, futures bets. It's all there. FanDuel has you covered for college football, the NFL, and beyond. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. So what do we do with a group of 5? What do we do? Do we not include them in the playoff? Well, that's probably not going to end in any way that isn't a lawsuit. That was way too many words for me to say. If the group of 5 isn't guaranteed a spot in the college football playoff, there might very well be an antitrust lawsuit. That's what you hear folks like Joel Klatt say, and I think he happens to be right. And by the way, the institutional control folks in college sports, when it comes to court battles over the years, they lose a lot. So a group of 5 team is likely to have an automatic berth into the college football playoff next year. So that being said, is all of this with JMU, and I know they played well in the second half. Oregon had a lot of backups in the game, but JMU kept playing hard, did a lot of things well. The game was 34-6 at the half. It was over. Ole Miss got up big against Tulane, and it was kind of close for a quarter, but they scored in 59 seconds. Are these teams going to continue getting in? Yeah, they will. Should they? I mean, not in my perfect world. In my perfect world, I actually agree with folks like Joel Klatt. And I know it can be really easy to dunk on a guy like Klatt, who had one of the worst takes I've ever heard not long ago. And he owned up to it. Or you hear Kirk Herbstreit talk, who I think has said some... Why don't we just say he's made some comments over the last several months, really over the last couple of years, that I think have turned a lot of college football fans against him. And I think both of those guys can give off the impression that they are anti-Group of Five. And if you hear one of them say something like the Group of Five should have its own playoff, I don't believe that is them being anti-Group of Five. I believe that, by the way. And I love G5 football. I watch it a lot. I talk about it here on the show. Not just because it is going to put a team into the college football playoff each year, but what I think is missing from that conversation most often is what would really make it exciting and enticing for fans is if you introduce promotion and relegation between the FCS, the Group of Five, and the Power Four. Because these were very clearly the two best Group of Five teams that college football churned out this year. They were the best, and they were the most deserving. They were definitely the second one. They were probably the first one as well. And they were not going against the best teams in college football. And they were not close. I don't think they will ever be close. Could they pull an upset every now and then? Never say never. Never say never. I've seen crazy things happen in college football before. I mean, if Texas A&M had been a 5 seed, do I think they could lose a game to a really good Group of Five? Possibly. It's entirely possible. But here's the inevitable outcome. I just think if you introduce promotion and relegation and the financial incentives that are associated with that, I think it would be a much better model for college football. That's just me. Well, it's not just me, but for now it's just me. Doesn't it feel, because of how those games went, that we were all expecting them to be blowouts, that Vegas said with the point spreads they were going to be blowouts, and then they were? Doesn't it feel like we are headed towards the inevitable outcome of expanding the playoff again? We're inching closer to what I have said for a long time. Since the 12-team playoff was initially announced, I have been on this from the jump. They will not stop expanding the playoff until it's a 24-team model, because Fox puts out those graphics every other week, and I am repulsed by it. But people are going to make the point, well, the FCS does it. That sort of bumper sticker logic drives me insane, but okay. By the way, I could readily make the argument the FCS playoffs have got too many teams in them, because there are plenty of squads that get in that have no chance if and potentially when they get matched up against the top teams in the sport. This is the way the college football has always been. It's not going to change in the NIL and transfer portal world. So I get the sense we're headed towards a 16-team model where a Group of Five team still gets in automatically, and people are just going to have to live with that. For those of you who rip your hair out, who get frustrated and annoyed, why do they get to play? These are ridiculous. It's dumb that they're getting this access and all that. You better learn to accept it or channel your anger through another avenue, because I don't think it's going to go away, because no one wants to talk to me about my model, at least, the highest people at the top of college football. No one wants to talk to me about my ideas for the sport. Because if you were to work in promotion relegation, well, now we could have something. Now suddenly a Group of Five playoff that puts you into the Power Four. Well, that's very different. Because if you just make a Group of Five championship that doesn't have any impact, shall we say, or doesn't have, anytime you create something new, the lack of history can make it hard for fans to truly care about it. But if you introduce that model and said, hey, the Group of Five champion at the end of every year gets to go up to the Power Four, and you had a bottom dwellers bowl and said the winner gets to stay in the Power Four and the loser goes down to the Group of Five ranks this year, by the way, That would be a matchup. Tell me you wouldn't watch this. Between 2-10 Boston College and 1-11 Oklahoma State. Winner gets to stay in the Power Four. Loser goes down to the Group of Five, and the winner of the Group of Five playoff, which probably have 8 teams in it, I would think. Maybe 4, maybe 8. I haven't hashed out every single detail on that front. The winner then gets to take their spot, be a part of the Power 4 conference, and get the financial distribution that comes with being at that level of college sports. Tell me you wouldn't watch? I'd watch it. Are you kidding me? It'd probably be a sold-out crowd for either of those places. If you played it on a campus, you'd probably have Boston College be the home team because they won 2 games. I'm just saying, it's an idea. I do feel like we're headed towards the inevitable outcome of expanding the playoff, which I don't think is a good idea. But hey, that's just me. Other people like it. Okay. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.